Hey listeners, just a quick note. Today's episode is brought to you by Njord, powered by Maersk Tankers. Join Njord and 4 leading providers of wind assist propulsion technologies on Tuesday, June 25th for their next webinar. During this live event, experts will discuss cutting-edge wind technology that enhances operational efficiency and environmental performance. Hear from Christina Alexandri Munoz of Bound for Blue, Yuka Kulkowski of Norse Power, Simon Schofeld of Bar Technology, Nicholas Dahl of Oceanbird, and Steen Sander Jakobsen of Njord. Don't miss this opportunity to gain valuable insights into the future of maritime technology. Register now to tune in live on June 25th at 10 CEST. Check the show notes for registration link and on to the show. Welcome, everyone, and you are listening to The Last Dinosaur, and I'm your host, Chris Aversano. Today's guest is Nir Gartzman, co-founder and managing partner at theDOCK. theDOCK is a vertical venture capital firm investing in and providing industry expertise to startups developing technologies for maritime, supply chain, and the offshore sectors. Located in Israel, theDOCK harnesses Israeli technology innovation assets as well as global entrepreneurs to deliver practical innovation to the sector. FYI, I had at least one of your portfolio companies already. That was Orca AI and its COO, Dora Raviv, back, I think, last year. Yeah, very good stuff. That was really cool technology. So we're looking forward to speaking with you, Nir. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. Happy to be here.
This is exciting because I think you guys are one of the OG, as the kids say. My kids will yell at me. Maybe they don't say it that. But you guys were one of the first really to focus on the maritime space. Tell us a little bit about what you're up to today and kind of how you got here.
Okay, so first of all, theDOCK is a venture fund, but it's also a startup. This is Hanan, my partner, and myself initiative, private venture capital that we pitch it across the world around partners, early adopters, visionaries in the space, that this is the right timing, and I'm talking 2017, to start to invest in digital technologies in the space. Back then, it sounds almost, let's call it...
far off, fantastic, yeah.
There is alternative investment, and there is, to be in the fantasy world. It was just during this year, back then, that Maersk Growth and PSA from Singapore started their own venture arm. It was the first early indicators of funding for technology in the space. And the idea that a shipping company and a port organization will buy tech, not from, HP or IBM, but from a new startup, considered to be very forward-looking.
Yeah.
The good news is that we find some visionaries to support this idea. And the main reason that we started it is because we estimate that the global human capital, regardless the industry, is digital native from now onwards.
Yes.
And if you look to the future, so in every industry, the new talent, the new people that entering the industry and become future managers are digital savvy, and they will use apps, and no one in Amazon or new hires in the Maersk in the future will learn how to use fax. This age is over.
Yeah. It's funny. Somebody from the beginning, very early on, actually, it was one of the fellows that I interviewed who's part of the Seafarers Mission. So I think it was one of the reverends. He said the older people are like the last dinosaur. He's my generation, more like I'm in my mid years. He said our generation, Gen X, are more like the transient. We grew up with the last dinosaur, having to be a dinosaur, but now we've had to become digital adopters. We're like this transient adopters. Like we could go back and send a fax if we have to. There's a lot of us that know how to do. We're not going to, but we also embrace and acknowledge. And then what you said, exactly that, the digital natives, which is the group kind of behind me and younger. And it's really interesting that you use that terminology because we certainly heard it before, for sure.
My partner is 20 years older than I am. And he's one of the youngest entrepreneurs that I know because he's always looking to the future.
Right.
And he has the best credentials that you can think about. He took an Israeli software company, IPO over Nasdaq, M&A to Salesforce beyond $1 billion, done the whole round, and came back to do high tech in the maritime sector, where his passion lies. He's a naval officer in his early days, early career, like myself. And the idea that we can support startups in the space, that startup was very premature, very unique in the space, was based on the idea that every startup in its early days sounds almost, ridiculous.
Right. Yeah.
On the moment that everybody around the table agree and nod with their head, and oh yes, of course, the sector is moving through a digital disruption. This means that you're probably 5 years too late to be early visionary supporter of startups in the space.
Yeah.
And this is correct for the internet, for Microsoft, and any new tech around. Okay, and I think OrcAI that you had Dor here, it's a great example to talk about future autonomous vessel, digital watchkeeper. In 2017, it was super visionary.
That is
and
the other one.
Yeah.
The other one that I had on, and I'm not sure the relationship with you guys was Windward as well. I had Windward on as one of my, and they were like, at the time it was the sanction, the kind of the ships, and mostly it dealt with the oil. Now, I mean, with the evolution where it's becoming a watchdog for ESG, a watchdog for what's going on in the Red Sea, and then and then all sorts of stuff that's happening in other parts of the world that doesn't get as much press. Talk about a visionary. That was another company. I had Matan on, and that was that was interesting. When you look at it in the beginning, you probably had people like, but once it's active, you go, of course. And then how could I live without it? And then you have the inevitable of copycatters coming on, saying, hey, let me try to take the Windward idea and make it a little different. But that's a form of flattery as well as competition.
Agree, and always a challenge. As venture investor, this is the tough question that we ask the founders. Just keep in mind that we saw over the last 6 or 7 years close to 1,000 startups.
Wow.
Okay? Different startups, different teams. Not all of them formed into company. Not all of them end up doing anything in the maritime sector. Some of them came with technology and explore about the maritime sector. I think that we met in person about 500 of them. This is our daily life.
Wow.
We meet startups. We done 16 deals, 16. Okay, so imagine the ratios. So you mostly say no, or not now, or we prefer others. And you try to refine the best. It's like gold in the river, or even in the high stack. And in the end, you will find the ones like OrcAI, like WaveBL. Windward was there before we started, but you mentioned Matan.
Right.
I know Matan in person before he started Windward. Actually, we served in the Israeli Navy as naval officer a few years before. And he's a friend. And I know his story before he has the first dollar to Windward. Right. And he's definitely visionary about it. And I think every startup founder in the space should get some applause about the courage.
So when you talk about the 16, is there a common thread amongst those? If you look at each of those, and I think everybody tries to, look at Steve Jobs or this to that. Oh yeah, you got to get up at 5 a.m. and you got to run 4 miles and you got to. I mean, I've met a lot of founders. I don't know how much running they're doing. I mean, it's stressful as it is. Some guys are go-hung and and they run after it, and some guys are a little more mellow, low key. Not to say they're not active or anything, but just they don't have that. What you see on the internet, you can't believe it. But you know what I'm getting at. Has there anything been in kind of your time that you've seen that these thousands or so of startups and meeting with over 500 companies? These are some really impressive numbers, and been doing it since really the early days of this kind of this tech bubble almost, and I don't think we're even close to bursting. Is there a direct line or something, or a couple of traits that you've seen in enough that you kind of like you kind of follow that there?
Great question. I think that first and foremost, the interesting part is that the successful startup founders are anything but the average corporate executive. So they think different, they act different. That's sometimes not something that you can understand well, and you need to be very adaptive and very good listener and understand between the line what they're trying to build.
Yeah.
The good thing about vertical focus fund is we have backers which are strategic partners, visionary ones that put the skin in the game, money into the game, and they are committed to help us succeed, and we consult with them. And not all of them accept everything, but the one that make us enthusiastic, when we bring them to our partners, and we have partners from the maritime sector from Japan, Singapore, Greece, Germany, UK, US as our backers, very global. We always try to look those three, four visionaries from the market side that say, oh, this is great. This is something that if those guys or founders can deliver, we want to trial this. We will be an early adopters with it to hear this enthusiasm from the market side.
Right.
Obviously, it doesn't mean they can deliver, a lot to check, due diligence, tech, global competition.
Of course.
But this is something you can do with a vertical fund. But coming back to your question about the founders, I think that each and every founder is unique. And I think that the magic about venturing is, and this is something that I keep in mind, and hopefully I succeed in some of it, we try to back founders that will never hire me for their company in the early stage, because they are so talented, and the talent density in the early stage of the startup is just astonishing. If you enter OrkAI offices or Harbor Lab in Athens to meet the first 10, 20 employees, it's mind-blowing. Yeah, passionate people left their corporate job, their safe environment to try to change the world with very low rate of success, and still doing it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Certainly I love that talent density saying, and I could kind of envision what you're talking about, like you said, not necessarily a corporate executive, somebody that comes in and, brief, but you got to have somebody who he or she can roll up their sleeves and maybe code, maybe not, but certainly have the vision of saying, this is what I want the output to look like. This is how it has to function. And to make the tough decisions of no, a little better, a little worse, a little faster, a little different. One of the things that I saw recently, which was kind of interesting, somebody shared with me a slide from a deck that they were working on or that they got, was all of the companies, not maritime tech, but general tech. I think Twitter was on there, some other ones that pivoted away from their original idea, but they started on A and ended on R. And maybe it was more than one pivot, but they just kind of, have you seen that in kind of your investments where maybe somebody came in and said, try this, and then maybe one of your committee said, you know what, you're going east, which is fine, but I want you to try going southeast or a little almost south of that. And I think you have something. Have you seen that? Because I think that's something that gets lost. When you look like a company like I work for Vesson, really successful. Q88, was purchased by them. We had a really successful product and we're building out. We're doing all the right things. By no means would I ever walk into any office and say I work for a startup. I work for a tech company, and not necessarily Q88 was not necessarily a big tech company because I only worked there for a couple of years before we sold. But nonetheless, it was established. We never had to worry about making a pivot, at least at a corporate level. Have you had to advise on that and kind of get into like pivot of away from what they're doing and into something different?
You mentioned about non-maritime. So in our CRM, in our house HubSpot, we divided it by pure play companies to more generic tech companies. And here and there, companies completely out of our sector, knocking on our door. It could be from other venture capital funds that co-invest with us in maritime tech startups. Tell us, listen, this company is doing the best tech with the lowest latency of autonomous trucks. And we noticed that your partners from Germany, Next, which is investor in theDOCK, invest in Fundraising in a huge $40 million round for automated autonomous trucks in port terminals. With Fundraising, what is the market there? We can do it better from others. Why not start in this confined spaces? So sounds like a great go-to-market. And literally this company, after raising $4.5 million with autonomous buses running inside campuses and hospitals, come to us and say, hey, we can do the same for ports. Please help us.
Yeah.
And we look into this sector and we saw that there is already some winners. You mentioned competition earlier. Yeah. And we saw Nir Gartzman from London and Friendride, and we told them, if you came to us 2 years ago, it was the case. But we believe that it's maybe too late, and the market will have like 5 winners, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And you know what those people done? Those entrepreneurs? They announced us a few weeks ago. They just bought a truck from Thalberg and enter it with one port and start their own pilots into a port. Because they still believe there is a chance in this go-to-market, regardless if this is significant enough for us to and this is entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah, okay? that is. I mean, I look at the other one, which, again, from the outside, and please, if you're listening and you're in this space, I'm not meaning no disrespect, but the wind sail. Like, I see new companies and interesting. And I'm like, okay, like, and I know everybody's a little different, and we got, but I think like there's probably going to be a handful, and maybe it becomes a survival of the fittest. Maybe it becomes a who you know, how you're capitalizing it, which is what I want to talk about next. Is, as you've developed. I mean, you said you started in 2017, and at the time, and really up until maybe 2 years ago, the cost of borrowing capital as you're raising was there, but not really significant. And obviously that's changed with interest rates. How has that changed how you guys look at investing in the space?
It's timing is a lot, right?
Oh yeah.
It was Roosevelt mentioned that in 9th sense of wisdom is being wise in time, right? In the right timing. We raise our second fund, the more large and more significant that we are deploying now, just before the current market rates and the interest and the ability to get, almost zero risk, great yields, and the idea to raise capital from family offices into institutional, just cash stock of corporates was much easier. Right. Look on the global tech, global venturing sector, regardless maritime, is in huge decline. It's very, very challenging to bring a new capital.
Right.
And as a fund that have the capital for now and the next couple of years to invest, this lack of capital and lack of new funding put investors in a better, let's call it negotiation position in front of founders.
Yeah.
And this will be changed in 2 years from now, maybe.
Oh yeah.
So you have to work with it, and maybe we will have more challenging times when going to raise the next fund. So we need to leverage this as much as possible. Currently, we have fresh capital to invest. The market climate and the balance between investors and the entrepreneurs is okay for investors. So luckily, it was not too harsh for us. Yet, if we look about our portfolio startups, we want to make sure that they have a good capital available
Right.
next year and the year after. So we will meet those challenges. And the only solution is just to work hard and to excel with the current portfolio.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
mentioned Orc AI. They are just recently announced that their $23 million
Yep.
new round. We
Yep.
participated there. If you are very good, very passionate, very aggressive in the market, there is still capital around.
I definitely see that, especially in our space, because it is a little bit untapped, and brings me to another sort of question is, you were being one of the early adopters and really going through, and you mentioned the Singapore fund and the Maersk fund. And now, you see funds all over. The US has a couple of kind of, and it's a similar type thing where it's an incubator plus a fund. You have one here in Boston. You have one, Maritime Blue out on the West Coast. You have Germany. It has a couple.
Yeah.
From where your stance is, being one of the first guys there, good for business or bad for business, or a little bit of both?
Very good for business.
Yeah.
Imagine that 5 years down the road, after running around, try to attract good founders, tell the story and everything, there will be like 4 vertical maritime funds globally.
Right.
It means very bad about the market and about the trust of investors and partners and adopters.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
The fact that when we started, there was like 2 globally.
Right.
And today there are 45 that we know. And actually we co-invest with dozens of them. Okay.
Yeah.
We co-invest with Innoport from Germany, with TechPeer, with Motion Ventures in Singapore.
Yeah.
We in each deal that we done, we co-invest with other funds. So we literally co-invest with many of those that you mentioned. And this is only an evidence that there is a market and increased adoption and open-mindedness from different industry players, from corporate VCs to pure financial money that go after, those strategic put skin in the game. We will put also money to be somewhere in this new emerging maritime tech sector.
Yep.
And maybe last comment about it, even good companies in our space still lack of a good growth capital.
Right.
We are much more collaborated, compete with other funds. And actually we work together to convince outsider of the industry to put money and to seed opportunity. Harbor Lab from Greece recently raised capital from Notion and from Atomico.
Yeah.
General purpose VC, great track record that never heard on the maritime sector before. I took a call of 2 hours with the partners in Atomico to tell them about their question about the market, because they say, okay, the numbers look great, the founders look great, but give us some hint about where is the competition, where is the numbers, let's vet it. And it was very interesting to hear about new, legacy VC entering this sector with capital. And it's only by them seeing much more activity that help us doing this. So
right,
very good news from my perspective.
That's actually good news from everybody, because sometimes people do get weary of competition, but it's viewed in a different light, which makes a lot of sense. I know from a personal thing, I met, a couple of founders like yourself or investors like yourself. And I was at a social event, and it was for their fund, but then they had other funds there. And at first I was like, why would you and I'm thinking I spent most of my time in commercial shipping. So it's like, wait a minute, if I'm a broker, like a shipbroker, why would I invite other shipbrokers to a party that I'm holding? But you can't look at it that way. You have to look at it like in collaboration, because then of course, I think it diminishes, the risk, right? There is a level of spreading the risk around, and then also maybe changing your risk profile a little bit, saying, well, I'm not going to invest 10 million. I'll invest 2.5. And then all of a sudden you're investing in 4 companies, let's say, with that same portfolio rather than one. And then, okay, 1 does great, 1 does okay, 1 does okay, and the other fails. Well, you're 75%. rather than if you happen to pick the one that didn't work out, then you're out 100% all the capital. So I could see that logic, loud and clear. Two questions. One, do you still get surprised about like somebody pitches you an idea and you go, how come I didn't think that? Do you still get that? Because I come across something recently where I very much felt that. And then the second thing is, if somebody was trying to get in, what should they be focusing in on? Where do you see kind of like a lack of focus? Because I know for a while everybody thought, like in the space that I'm in, the prefixture charter space, it's the sexiest thing in the world. When in reality, it's like, okay, you're not going to get a lot of money from it. No one's really going to go on a trading platform to a full extent. And you're going to have 10 people beating each other up. But there's a whole, blue ocean, so to speak, over here. Are you seeing any of that? Like, what would you advise?
Many questions. I will start from the first about blowing our minds. Definitely, this is the fun part in our activity, that you sometimes think, okay, I'm talking about maritime innovation, and then all of a sudden people entering your office and they talk with you about carbon fixation in the ocean. And you say, okay, carbon fixation in the ocean. Okay, yeah, we know shipping emissions is 3% of the global emissions. They say, no, we are not talking about the 3% of emissions of shipping. We're talking about the global emissions, that big part of it traveling across the ocean. A very small part of them end up chemically and biology, interact with algae and sink to the bottom of the ocean. This is a known neutral process that absorbs 0.1% of the carbon to the bottom of the ocean for millions of years. We want to mimic it on scale like 10,000x and absorb gigaton of carbon into the bottom of the ocean and spread magic dust out of ships that traveling across the ocean, where you have by winds those kinds of clouds of carbon. And is this real? So we start to look at that, and hell yes. And you see at One Ventures, Thomas Chi, Google X, the most famous impact fund from the US, from Silicon Valley, with $500 million in commitment, look at the same solutions, and they come to us for help with design partnerships from the shipping world. And we ask partners, and they say, okay, if this is make money, and the best way to win carbon credits, and very good one, because you literally sunk it in the ocean for millions of years and not plant a tree. And a lot of brainwash about it and greenwash about it. So, and we end up investing in them. Yeah. The company called GigaBlue, we invest in them in the pre-seed and now in the seed in our portfolio, super visionary, all the challenges that you can imagine about regulatory and what you spread something in the ocean, what happens with the fish, and will it work? How do you measure it? You have tons of challenges. But if they will succeed, it will be a game changer on the global carbon fixation market.
Yeah.
And we invest in them. And this is something that literally blow your mind. And we literally, when we done the tech due diligence, we found, those super famous scientists that told us something like, this is not complete nonsense. This is not against the law of physics.
Right. Yeah.
This could be done. This never been done, but supposed to be doable with enough research and funding.
Right.
And we put this funding, we and some of our partners. So blowing our mind, definitely. And you think, maritime tech, you think about chartering, you think about IoT containers. Yeah. No, they came to you about spreading magic dust of the ocean out of ships. Yeah. What a fuck. And we invest in them. Wish us luck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, good luck. Yeah. So, that to me, even like when I started this podcast on a much lower risk scale, I started writing down some, the thing you have to do. The magic dust here is write down like guests and what you want to talk about, things like that, right? And I'm looking at this going, I'm going to run out of guests. This is what I thought, right? And I'm like, and here I am 70 something into it later. And I get calls, I haven't got the fairy dust call yet. I'd love to, but I talk more about digitization, but even just on the digitization and little social media stuff, I don't. I'm booked until I don't have to make another phone call until the middle of 2025.
Wow.
Just people and
Unbelievable, right?
what yeah, it's just wonderful, but it must be the same thing. And then people talk to me about technology. It's like, wow, this is kind of cool. Like, yeah, I'll have you come on the. I didn't even think about that, but it must be a lot of that as well.
I think that generally speaking, the global trade is like a hidden layer of the world. 95% by volume of everything around us travel by sea. And
That's right.
even the
Yeah.
rest, if you go to the bill of materials and to the raw materials, everything travel by sea and
Yeah.
energy and everything. But people going to solve the next autonomous car or their, fintech technology for transfer money into the bank because they know their bank and they have a car, but nobody walk around the street and see those cranes and the
Yeah.
accidents in ports. So this is a hidden layer
So, yeah.
of the global trade, of the global economy, trillions of dollars of huge economy, that there are so many challenges, so many fragmented areas and islands of inefficiency to solve. And just look on our portfolio, Motion Ventures, flagship founders, you will see, okay, this digital bill of lading, and this is IoT for containers and unmotorized assets and chassis trucks. Oh, okay, or KI is for collision avoidance in the breach of the vessel. And Ocean Score from Germany, they are doing monitor reporting and verification of shipping emissions with the headache of the EU ETS regulation. It's so vast, and you have so much challenges to solve to make it more efficient, greener, easy to use, transparent to the customers of the industry that actually pay the bills.
I had on Kyle Henderson of Vision, who is doing this container tracking type stuff, really good stuff. And he said one of the things that really stuck with me, and that was, if you make a 1% change in emissions or something on a global basis, you are impacting $1 trillion trade business. So if you make a 1%, like compared to doing something else, and I joke around like making something like Uber for your pets. Okay, that's nice. If you got you going, and look, man, maybe you make more money doing Uber for your puppy. Like, great, good luck. But the real impactful stuff, like you said, even if it's sprinkling dust on the ocean and it could do something, is definitely impactful. And following up on my second question is there anything there that you go, oh yeah, man, there's a, like, I'm seeing, and maybe you don't want to say, that's good, but like there's a whole blue ocean strategy. And I'm talking about the reference to the book that like people are just missing.
I fully agree. And, if you look on this global inefficiencies in the market and automation port and lack of skilled workforce for repetitive and challenging tasks. So think about robotics and humanoid that Elon Musk mentioned on his last presentation, that he estimates that his robots to do repetitive work in Tesla factories and from there elsewhere will be worth and outnumber anything that he done to date. And I'm taking him seriously. Imagine that all the repetitive work, you think about all the automation in ports. Everything become automated with trucks and cranes, and still people climbing on those ladders to do the coning and the lashing of containers.
Yeah.
And you don't have how to do it. And people injure there, and you still have people, and you want to have this sterile environment to do everything automated, and then you stop everything, the machines, and hordes of people going in and out of the vessel. So imagine this will be made by humanoid robots in 5 years.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a game changer. Certainly, there's going to be people who will balk at it, but I do think there's always the element of having the human in a loop for this, which is extremely important because there's going to be that touch point as well, and that's going to be the blending of the two. We could probably talk forever, but as we kind of get towards the end, you're busy, you're traveling. We were trying to talk earlier. You were in the Far East. Now you're back, and you're heading off to Posidonia. Lucky guy. Say hello to everybody there for me. But question for you. what are you reading? Do you find a lot of time to read? And by the way, maybe someone like yourself, and I've had plenty of people who are writing books. Maybe you're going to write the perfect pitch book 101. I don't know, but what are you reading these days? What brings you? What do you chuck in the bag there when you get on a flight?
Yeah. You know what they say, that you need to write something worth reading or do something that's worth writing about. So I am on the later side.
Okay.
And I love reading. The late Charlie Munger just mentioned that the interesting people that he know, and he knew probably the best, visionary leaders across the globe through his investment, mentioned that the combination of interesting and successful people and people that are not heavy readers are zero. All the people that he know is heavy readers, and it's including most of the interesting people that I know. In any given time, I read a business book and a literature fiction book. Currently, I'm reading the No Rules by Erin Meyer.
Okay.
The one that writes the culture map. Also a great book about international business gaps, etc. And for my mind, I read now a book by Japanese author Haruki Murakami, IQ 84.
Is that the one with the 2 moons?
Yeah, I don't spoil. I just started. I finished.
Oh yes. I read that.
I just finished his previous book, and now I started.
Yeah, I read that. That's very good. It's very good.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe I spoiled it. Yeah. I'm actually reading Interstellar by.
Good one. I read it.
Yeah, by Avi Loeb. Don't tell me what happens. Are there aliens? No, I like his approach. I mean, firstly, the guy, all this with extraterrestrials and stuff. I mean, I've always kind of been interested in it just from a very there has to be something else, right? Or you think, right? Like just numbers. And the way he talks about, this is a very well-educated guy, educated in the best systems on the planet, and he's writing about it.
Yeah.
And I just find it, I read his other book, I forgot the first one, Extraterrestrial, and I just started this one. I've always had a thing about science and physics. I love reading about string theory. I don't understand it, but I love the ideas. What I love is, so you were very practical, hands-on. We're going to do stuff, and then you got these mathematicians, and again, who can sit there and write a theory on a board and go, well, that means that there's other universes, or the theory that postulates that we're 3D representation of a 2D event happening on the interface of a black hole.
Mind-blowing. Really.
Great. Can I have a glass of water? It's like I have a hard time getting up in the morning. These guys are
this glass next time we meet in person. You will get one of those.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Nir, thank you so much, man. This was a fantastic thing. And I appreciate you coming on, and not only what you coming on, but of course what you're doing about really educating and getting the word out there about the maritime spit business. Even though we're in the corners, or as somebody said, they have sea blindness. We're a critical part, obviously, I think the part of the global economy. And, thank you for bringing that to light. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Chris. It's been a pleasure. Very fascinating talk for me as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Once again, this episode was sponsored by Njord, powered by Maersk Tankers. Just a reminder, on Tuesday, June 25th, join Njord and 4 leading providers of wind assist propulsion technologies for a live event. Discover how ship owners can integrate cutting-edge wind technology to secure a competitive edge. Panel includes Christina Alexandru-Munoz, Jukka Kokoski, Simon Schofeld, Nicholas Dahl, and Steen Sander Jacobsen. Register now and tune in live on June 25th at 10 CEST. Don't miss out, and the registration link is in the show notes. Once again, I'm Chris Aversano, wishing you fair winds and following seas. Thanks for listening to today's podcast.